Hello, Ken. Ken Jee. I am a fan, and I am truly grateful that you accepted to be on the podcast. So welcome to Now What.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I've listened to quite a few of the other podcasts, so I'm in good company with a lot of the people that have come on, and hopefully my story, my message can help people navigate this data science career path a little bit more effectively.
Yeah, and all the work that you have done, and plus this podcast is going to be helpful. And you're truly a mentor for me, and I hope that who didn't discover you yet is going to discover you, at least my community, via this podcast. So thank you for listening to the episode. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, you produce good stuff, so I'm always happy to. Learning a
Thanks.
lot.
Thanks. Okay, so the first question I want to ask you, it is very difficult to get to know your background via website, via the web. You don't put a lot of information about your background in there, so I'm pretty curious about it. Can you tell me your journey beginning from high school? How did you get into college, and then the end of the story should be how did you get into data science? How did you discover about data science?
Yeah, it's a long story, so I hope you've got time.
We
But
got time, man.
so in high school, I was a terrible student. I wasn't interested in academics. All I wanted to do was play sports. So I played golf and I played baseball. And I was recruited to do both of those in college. I ended up playing golf in college. I mean, that was the thing that I was most passionate about. I barely went to any of my classes. I barely scooted by. And I was always focused on how to improve my performance. So even without being interested in academics, I started tracking my own stats when I was playing golf. And I realized that I could use this to improve what I was doing there. I could see where I was making the most errors in my game, and I could go about correcting those or working on those areas to make sure that I was getting the most, bang for my buck in terms of practicing time. I eventually in school, I went through like six different majors. I think I started with psychology. I took some environmental science classes. I did health exercise science. I think I did like general business, finance, and I ended up in economics. But I took my first economics course and it really resonated with me. It matched how I viewed the world. It showed me that I could understand performance, I could understand people through numbers, through graphs, through trends, whatever that might be. And this was completely, pivotal in my life. I'd never um, had a framework for viewing the world like that. So it's like, hey, I can understand consumer behavior. I can understand how I should price a product. I should understand how much time I should spend practicing on a certain area because there's opportunity cost of time. So if I spend, if people are familiar with golf, if I spend an hour practicing on my approach shots, that's an hour I can't spend practicing putting or driving. So how should I most effectively allocate that time? But basically that first economics course and my love of sports really spurred my interest into diving into sports through the numbers further. So early on, I started to develop this great interest in that intersection between the sports that I was playing and how to understand them from numbers in general. So after college, I tried to play professional golf for about, I guess, 6 months. And I realized, again, this opportunity cost concept that, hey, if I spent 5 years doing this and I didn't make it, what was I forgoing? There are, there were starting to be, I was starting to see other things that I would be interested in doing, specifically around the analytics space or with sports that I wouldn't be able to do if I didn't have the proper education, the proper background, the proper understanding of that field. So I took 6 months and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to try and break into a field where I can learn more about these analytical skills. So I applied to get a master's in global commerce at the University of Virginia. I ended up getting in. I took the GMAT while I was still playing tournaments, and I did well enough to get into school. Before I started that program, I actually worked at this company called DraftKings. And so in the US, DraftKings is one of the biggest daily fantasy sports websites. And now
Mm.
they're starting to get in pretty heavily into the sports gambling space. I
Yeah.
just looked, their stock was up quite a bit today, which made me happy because I bought a little bit. So um, that's always a little bit of a win. But there I learned a lot more about the technical skills you needed for this space. They were doing sports analytics at a high scale, trying to optimize the competitions. And I got exposed to SQL, I got exposed to R, I got exposed to Python. These are tools I had never even considered working with before. But I saw how important they were for this broader field that I wanted to get into. So in that master's degree, I did end up learning a little bit of SQL. I did end up learning quite a few different machine learning techniques. But back then we were doing it in SPSS, which wasn't very practical for me. So after that, after I finished that degree, I went and I worked in management consulting again for about 6 months to a year until I realized that I absolutely did not like it. It was not for me. I wasn't doing enough technical work. It was quite a grind. You know, I was working all the time, I just didn't enjoy the nature of the work at all. I also felt huge imposter syndrome because what I was doing was like software development lifecycle consulting and also project management consulting. And I had never worked on a software team. I also had no clue about, I'd never written a line of code at that point in my life. So how can I be telling the head of software development or like the head of DevOps or the CIO of the company what they should be doing if I've never had any exposure to their world? I was a complete phony. So at that same time, I realized, one, I was a phony, and two, well, how do I go about getting these skills that would match my sports analytics data science interests that I was developing at the time? And so I was like, look, I realized from my last degree that SPSS isn't the way. Programming is going to be the future of data science or the future of the problem solving that I was interested in. So I decided to go back and get my master's in computer science. Again, at this point, never having written a line of code. One, I thought it would be a really cool challenge for me. It would be extremely difficult, which it was, especially starting out. I kind of picked up steam as I went. But if I could tackle the computer science aspects, I already had a good business understanding. I thought that would really put me ahead of a lot of other candidates because you know they're either coming from business and they're slowly biting off a little bit more of the computer science stuff, or they're coming from computer science and they're slowly biting off the business things. I was coming from a master's degree in business. Like, what if I went all in and did a master's degree in computer science as well, and had, at least at the time, what I thought to be the most credibility from academics in both of those areas. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that has paid off for me in the longer term, but I wouldn't recommend a master's degree, even one master's degree, to most people trying to break into the field. I think they're really expensive. It's a big time suck. You can use your time a lot more effectively. But I digress. Back to my story here. So during that master's in computer science degree, I started working at Scouts Consulting Group as a data scientist. That's where I still work. It was started by one of my friends, and I was one of the very early employees. And the nice thing about working at a small company is I could apply almost all of the things that I was working on in school to the work that I was doing in the field. And so at Scouts, we do sports analytics consulting. We work mainly in golf and basketball. So I was working on the exact types of problems that I was interested in. I was applying what I was learning in school on a daily basis. And I think that really springboarded my journey into becoming a true data scientist, becoming a true sports analytics person, is that I was able to, you know, learn and iterate and do projects all at the same time. So I guess that's kind of how I ended up in my current working position. At that same time, I realized that me coming from business was not a traditional path into computer science, into data science. And I started making YouTube videos because I wanted people to understand what my journey was like if they were interested in making that transition as well. I had a lot of fun making them. I think I produced my first YouTube video in grad school still for one of my class projects. I just posted it because I had to share it with the class with the professor. And I didn't realize on YouTube you could make an unlisted or private link. So I just like uploaded it. I was like, ah, whatever, no one's gonna watch it. And then I came back maybe 3 months later and it had a lot of views for me at the time. It was maybe 600, 1,000 views. I was like, oh my goodness, people like to watch this stuff. And so there's a couple important takeaways from that. The first is I had a little bit of traction. I had momentum on YouTube. And I was like, wow, if I build, if I make more, there are already a couple people watching, you can build on that. It's hard to start from a dead stop. The other thing is that I realized I really enjoyed the video making, the editing process, and what a fun hobby, what a cool way to put myself out there. So I was never, building my YouTube portfolio to get a job or anything like that. But over time, it has helped me. It has created a lot of opportunities for me, and hopefully, it's really helped a lot of other people break in, which was the main goal, the main onus, the main focus there.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And
Told
there
you
is
it's a
a
long
lot,
story, man.
and there is a lot of things that I want to ask you about
Yeah, for sure.
for follow-ups. It's very interesting. I didn't know that part, especially the golf part, and the not interested student in business. And I think this is great because data science is something that a lot of people seems untangible, and you are the pure demonstration that with hard work and with a little bit of passion and trying to find the niche that you're interested in, uh, that can actually be the path for you. And that is really 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 interesting. And so you started as a business and then transition into computer science. You
Correct.
said one thing before that I want to dig a little bit more into it. It is, you wouldn't recommend though the master in computer science for somebody that wants to start in data science, right? What would you recommend then? What would you say to somebody that is coming from a business background or is coming from a background that is not that technical and wants to break into data science? What are some resources you would recommend? What would you tell to them?
Well, so I'd like to talk more broadly about a lot of the things that you just said. So the first is that, I came from the business background into this field. Data science seems very unapproachable to a lot of people. And I think a lot of people look at data science completely backwards. They look at, hey, the end goal is to get into the field, right? From my experience, the end goal is to solve a problem that you're crazy about, right? I was crazy about understanding how to measure performance or how to predict performance in sports. And all of the data science tools I learned on the way to solving that problem. So I would focus more on a problem you want to solve. Say, oh, I want to, even if it's like something really basic, like, oh, I want to end world hunger, right? Focus on solving that problem and you'll accumulate the tools over the course of solving that or attempting to solve that. And so to me, that's a lot more of, solving world hunger is not an attainable goal, but building the tools or building the data expertise to approach that problem is a lot more attainable and specific than learning data science, because the field of data science is so big. I will never know all of data science, right? I
Sure.
will never know all of machine learning. Why would I set that as a goal if I'm just constantly going to be disappointed? I
Mm-hmm.
can, build a model to predict who will play well in the next golf tournament, right? That is something I can do. And with a concrete outcome, I can build the concrete steps to create the pipeline for all of the skills needed to produce that. So my thought is turn the equation around and say, what problem am I trying to solve? Let's learn all the skills needed for that. And then I can look back and say, oh my goodness, I'm a data scientist. I've learned all these skills from solving this problem. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be my initial recommendation there. Um, in terms of the courses or the tools you'll use to get into the field, there's plenty out there for free. I really like, sorry, excuse me. Ooh.
You got it.
I like Kaggle.com is one of my favorite ones. They have free online micro courses. They're really good. Also, I work with 365 Data Science. That's an online certificate. Pretty much all of these online certificates are really good. Those are good ways to 365 Data Science. There's
Would
other
you
ones.
pick one of those instead of a master in computer science or of a master in data science? Would you pick those?
So I think that looking at it that way is a bit one-dimensional, because
Sure.
with one of those, if you take a certificate and you do awesome project work and you network, you're going to get a lot more out of the time that you put in and the money that you put in than you would from a master's degree, right? So if I took the same, let's say in the US, I have to spend maybe $20,000 to $30,000 on a master's degree. I have to
Even
invest
more.
full time for, probably even more. I have to invest full time for, basically a year minimum. Let's say that's what, 2,000 hours ish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I get a master's degree, and I get the knowledge, but what else have I accumulated, right? I mean, I don't have work experience. I don't have any of these things. If I spent those same 2,000 hours and $30,000, on a certificate, which maybe costs $500, built, in those 2,000 hours, how many projects or how much hands-on experience I could get. I could volunteer. I could do plenty of things. And then also, if I spent a lot of that time networking, I think I would be a lot further ahead without going the master's degree route, both financially and both career-wise, if I use that time effectively. For some people, though, to be completely transparent, they're not good at using their time efficiently. And that,
Sure.
for those people, if they do have the money, a master's degree makes plenty of sense, right? A master's degree also has benefits, like you can get an internship probably more easy if you're doing a master's degree program, right? But from my perspective, if I had to go back and if I had a little bit more self-discipline, I would have 100% gone the certificate and project route, right? At the same time, at that time, during both of my degrees, I did not have the self-discipline to learn it on my own. So they worked out well for me. I mean, I still have, hundreds of thousands of dollars of student debt, which luckily I'm fortunate enough I can manage with my work. But, there is a huge financial and time cost to doing one of these master's degrees. And it's not a decision that should be taken lightly, but it's also not a one-size-fits-all answer. You have to really understand yourself, understand your limitations. If you're a great self-starter and you're like, look, I organize my time really well, I know that I will do what it takes to get into this field given the time and I can structure, there's absolutely no reason to pursue continued education, because you can make your own opportunities very easily. I mean, you might even, if you're working on data science projects for 2,000 hours, one of them might even become a business and you won't even need to get a job, right? I mean, it's one of those types of things, is that if you build it out, if you invest the time, you'll be shocked at what you can accomplish in that amount of time.
Yeah, and I'm a huge believer in that you at least you should have the thought that you have to think through to get a master and to put the money that needs to get into a master for things that actually you can learn online. Like many of the resources that are online, that can be even better than a master degree. I think, talking for me, it is I have a computer science degree, but most of my skills I picked it up online. The things that I will need in the future for computer science, I picked it up online because I was researching my own things, right? So definitely thank you for that. I hope that is going to help a lot of people as well. 2 follow-ups question from that.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll save them some money too. You never know.
Yeah, like it's all right. Yeah, it is a lot of money going to a master. That I'm talking this passionate about this topic because I'm graduating in December. In the January, I need to decide what I want to do, right? And do I want to go for a master? Do I want to accelerate my skills? What do I want to do? So yeah, those are questions that are going through my head, and probably through head of many other people. So hearing that from you, it's great.
For me, I always think work experience or as much real world experience trumps degrees as much as you can. I mean, I had someone in my YouTube comment section yesterday. He's like, I'm in the getting towards the end of my master's in data science, and none of these companies will even talk to me because I haven't had real world experience. He's like, oh, I thought this master's degree would be great and it would give me all the skills, but everyone's turning away because they want the thing that I gave up, right? And companies are fickle. The recruiting hiring process for a lot of data science roles is BS because they don't know what they want still. But at the same time, I would always look at it like, my first approach is to try and get a job. If that doesn't work out, you should go get a master's degree. There's nothing wrong with that. But your master's degree should be focused on getting internships. It should be buying you time to create opportunities.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I did go back to get a master's degree is I wanted to start a company. I wanted to start a few different things. And I was like, look, if I go to school, I can buy time to start these things. I can take out a little bit of student debt, and it's worth it to me because I have that extra time to create and to produce. None of the things that I produced in that time, aside from the YouTube channel, really ended up being somewhat successful. But I'm glad I took the time to develop those skills or to try and expand there.
Yeah, great. And yeah, those skills are, even if they don't turn into business, as you said, those are real work experience you can show, and you can and you learn from those things. Like the most important thing for now, for in your 20s, I believe, is to build up skills that you will use in the future when you have a real business. And so learning as much as you can. So do things, and yeah, thank you for that. That is great. The follow-up question that I had, because it's very important, I think it is, you said that you worked into data science backward. So you start from a problem that you really believe in, or you're really fascinated about, and you work that backwards. So you try to understand that problem fully and try to understand through numbers and data. Do you remember what problem was it? What exactly was the problem? How did you get started in those numbers, in those number ways? So if somebody else has this same kind of path, they can start their own project as well.
Yeah. So my first problem just came from my own personal life. The thing that I wanted to understand is how I could get better at golf. Right. I didn't need any fancy techniques. I was recording all my scores in Excel. I was looking at the areas of my game that had the most deviation. I was looking at the hole types that I had the most problems with. And I was taking that data and just basically translating it into how I could improve on the course. Naturally, as I expanded, I realized there was more things I could do. I didn't just have to look at my own performance and try to improve. I could try to start to understand how other golfers would perform, how they would, if I could understand what would predict their outcomes in tournaments. So I got really into the daily fantasy sports for a while, trying to predict golf outcomes. That was my obsession. And that's where I learned a lot of the regression techniques. That's where I learned a lot of simulation techniques. And as I went beyond that, I started to.
And you were still in college, right? Sorry to interrupt you. You were still in college.
This was grad school when I was doing the daily fantasy stuff. Yeah, the college was mostly my individual pursuit of understanding performance. So that grad school transition was, okay, how do I understand the daily fantasy stuff? Can I make money here? And I think I was net positive. I didn't do anything crazy. Also at the same time, I didn't have a tremendous amount of skills in that area. So I was still developing, but I learned regression in school, but I learned how to apply it, and I learned how to normalize it and do a bunch of those different things working on these projects. So the questions you're trying to solve or the problems, that it doesn't just have to be one big question. Maybe I made it seem like that. It can be a series of smaller questions where you pick up a couple different random skills, right? So I learned in my first pass at understanding my performance a lot about statistics, probability theory, standard deviation, normal distributions, whatever that might be. Because if you look at all of my golf scores over the course of a year, they fit pretty closely to a normal distribution. Some days I have good days, some days I have bad days. What does that shape look like? Can I, decrease the standard deviation over time? Can I move the mean lower so I'm shooting better scores? And then I started in grad school to get into the predictive stuff. How many fantasy points do I expect this person to score on a given day? There's some probability elements, whatever that might be as well. And then after that, we start getting into the other sports and looking at more sports analytics. Is this player, for example, going to win over the course of his PGA Tour career? What is the probability of that? Can I use logistic regression in that classification problem? So I found a domain in sports where I could apply pretty much all of these different data science concepts. And it worked out really well for me because I was able to stick these concepts on to something that I was already very interested in. I don't personally love data science for it being data science, right? I don't love reading about algorithms all the time. That doesn't really wet my whistle. But I love applying these things. I love what they can do. I love the questions that I can answer with the tools that I have. I mean, I don't, again, love coding, but coding is a huge means to an end. There's so many things. The world is so much bigger when you can program. It's just it's the utility belt for solving problems in 2020 going forward, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, this is great, even because personally, I think that way as well. I was in business first, then I transitioned into computer science because I wanted to understand truly what the whole software world that we are creating can, what kind of opportunities can open for me. And so I want to ask another thing, and it is, how did you go about like finding the resources you needed in solving the problem, right? So let's say you are in the middle of your project, you are trying to understand how to maximize your golf, performance, and you need some statistic, or you need some skills that you don't have. What is your approach? What do you do? Do you do research? What do you do? Do you go at school and you ask somebody? Can you go a little bit deeper into that process that you have?
So the reason I produce YouTube content is I wasn't content with what I found in my initial searches, especially when starting out. There's a lot of misinformation. Even now, there's more stuff out there to get confused on. At the time in school, I would reach out to people that I trusted with math, for example. I'd go to a couple of my professors. I had an economics professor named Thomas Rhodes, who I would wear out his office hours asking not economics questions. And I'm pretty grateful to him. He was nice with me, but there are a lot of professors that are like, dude, get out of here. This isn't related to my course. But I would also look at a couple online communities for daily fantasy sports, for example. There's one called Roto Grinders. Now I'm realizing Reddit is a good source for that. There's plenty of Facebook groups. And for those things to work, I think you have to be as involved with engaging and giving value as you are with asking questions. That to me is something I've realized over time. If I'm just constantly taking, that's not going to create a good reputation for me. That's not going to make people more inclined to help me out because, what value are they getting out of it? So the more I think about this, whenever I would ask people for advice, let's say my professors, I'd be, hey, do you want a golf lesson? This is something I'm good at it. I can help you out if you help me out. It's symbiotic. We both win. So I started with people back then. I think now, 6 years later, there's a lot of resources on YouTube now. There's a lot of people on LinkedIn. There's bigger communities where you can maybe even have one-on-one interactions. Still on my YouTube channel, I answer almost every comment that I get, or I try to, as long as it's not super broad and super vague. If you ask me a specific question like, hey, I'm interested in applying this statistics concept to this analysis I'm doing, I'll give you a 1 or 2 line answer that would hopefully help solve things. So I would have loved to, this might sound a little arrogant, but I would have loved to have had myself as a resource back then, or some of the other YouTubers that I'm friends with, the Data Professor, or Danny Ma, or some of these other people on LinkedIn. I mean, it's incredible what you can do if you're engaged in these communities. But if any of these people get a message or a comment from someone they've never seen before, or who hasn't contributed, there's going to be less incentive on their part to respond, because it's, who is this person? If that person's commenting on everything, trying to add value to other people all the time, hell yeah, I'm going to respond to that person. That person's helping me out by answering some of the other questions if they know them as well. So I would always make sure, or I would recommend for anyone listening to this, is look at these things as a two-way street. Absolutely use those resources, but try and provide value that's going to get you so much further.
And this is a life lesson, not only about communities, and this is so true even for LinkedIn, for everything. Like, you need to give something in order to receive. You cannot just take and take and take. That is not going to serve you well. But how do you go for those resources? Because if you start, like, let's say that you're just landed in this community, what do you do? How do you create somebody? You need some skills first. So how would you start in those things?
I would start with just basic Google search, right? And then just experimenting for a little bit. You get an Excel, you say, oh, this is, I want to track my data, right? So the first thing you do is you aggregate the data. If you have that data, that's already value you can provide to someone else because you can share it, right? And so even if you're asking questions about it, it's like, well, I don't understand how this standard deviation or this Z-score thing works. I have this data, I'd be happy to share it with you. If you wanted to use it for anything you're working with, it could be fun for you, whatever that might be. If you can help me understand how this concept works, or at least give me a couple resources for how this works. I think that generally just the thought of reciprocation or the thought of creating value is usually enough. I mean, you should be willing to follow up with it, but I would say less than 2% of the people that reach out to me asking for help consider offering anything in return. And a lot of the times they're like, hey, would you be willing to accept payment for this type of thing? And, I'm probably never going to accept payment for doing the resume reviews or any of those things. Don't quote me on that. I still haven't figured out what that looks like, but
yeah, you should do that, man. Your resume looks great.
but at the same time, I would rather someone be like, hey, if you need some help doing admin work or you need help with data collection, I'd be happy to do that. Because, frankly, any amount of money most people would be paying me right now for this stuff, it's not really worth my time, right? I'm not going to take advantage of students who are looking to get jobs. That's not I mean, if we're looking at like my data science hourly rate, it's probably 10 times what they could comfortably pay. So it's like let's try and find an equivalent value. Money is not going to be the best medium of exchange here. But again, that's how I would start, is you start with experimenting, you start with making mistakes, you start going down the wrong path, and you go down the wrong path for a while, and that's okay. But that's how you learn, that's how you get better, and that's how you have something to show to a community. That's how you say, look, I tried these different things and none of them worked. I'm new to this, like, can anyone shine some light on this? There isn't, I don't think that there's a right place to start. You just have to start and go down some rabbit holes. And once you have some track record, just like anything else, if you have some experience, even if it's screwing up, you have a story to tell. And if you have stories to tell, people are more likely to listen.
Yep. Yeah, great. And do you have any particular community you're more inclined to when asking questions related to data science? You mentioned a couple already, but if can you be more specific about give me free?
Yeah, so I think the biggest one is my YouTube community. Again, I'm very receptive there. I try to answer almost every comment that I get. LinkedIn is also very powerful. I think that even if it might sound intimidating, but you can just pose a question on LinkedIn. Say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Probably shouldn't be too code specific, but if it's conceptual, people usually jump in and help you, especially if you've built some connections there. And then I think Reddit is decent. There's a couple Discord servers. There's one I'm missing out on. If I think of it, I will try to let you know if it comes to me before the end of the interview.
Sure. We can come back on that. You don't have to answer right away. And those are great communities. And I just want to uh, tell once more that your community is great, and your videos are on YouTube are really helpful. And I wish I had them when I was doing my data science project because I didn't know about that. And when I started to look at it, you gave the answers like that. So, yep. So another thing that I wanted to ask you from before, you mentioned the imposter syndrome. That is something that is very it's a terrible thing. You think like you feel like you are an imposter. You don't want to. You really feel like a fish out of the water. I don't know if you can say that in the US. In Italy, we say fish out of the water when somebody's not comfortable. And so, how did you overcome the imposter syndrome? What did you do? Do you remember? Do you remember how it felt like, and do you remember how to overcome that? How to overcome that?
Well, this might not be the answer you're looking for, but I don't think you ever
Great.
overcome imposter syndrome. And I also don't think it's necessarily a terrible thing. I think imposter syndrome is an incredibly powerful motivating force, right? I don't want to be looked at like a fraud. I don't want people to think that I'm taking advantage of them. I don't want people to think that I'm not qualified. What can I do? You know, that drives me to produce better content. That drives me to make, you know, push my career position forward. That motivates me to do quite a few things. And if you're feeling it, you know, start doing projects, start doing data science work, start building your skill sets out. I mean, that imposter syndrome is not a reason to stop doing what you're doing, because you're always going to feel it. Imposter syndrome is a reason to really drive harder so that you at least ease it a little bit. I mean, I still constantly feel it. I mean, no one really questions my credentials anymore ever, because, you know, I have 2 master's degrees. I've worked in this field for quite a while, but at the same time, you know, they question quite a few of the things that I say in my videos, which I'm like, oh shoot, did I get that statistics concept wrong? I haven't looked at it in 7 years. I mean, like, the thing that you have to understand is that, I mean, it's just a constant journey where there's going to be ups and downs the whole way. I mean, you can't please everyone. You can't make everyone think that you're the most knowledgeable or greatest guy out there. And you shouldn't try. You should be really honest with what you know. Say, hey, for example, with my YouTube channel, there's plenty of concepts that I'm not very advanced on. I don't do a ton of deep learning. That's just not a big part of my day-to-day job. I try and do some projects here and there. But if someone wants a deep learning tutorial, if someone wants a better understanding of that, I'm not going to say I know that. I'm going to bring someone in who is an expert in it and have them talk about it. Or I'm going to try and do a project where I know that I'm not an expert in this, and I'm building it out with you, so we're both learning at the same time. That creates value for me because there's accountability. And if I'm coming from it at that angle as a student all the time, how can someone get mad at me if I mess it up, right? It's like, well, you know, we're both learning here, and you might get someone in the comments that's like, hey, actually do it this way. It's a lot more effective. That's helping my learning to begin with. So, you know, in data science, you're very much like in golf. You're not successful all that often, right? You have to try a lot of things before you get a acceptable result. And you just want to make sure that you're not getting defeated or knocked down constantly. You just have to have the mindset where you're going to keep going, you're going to keep learning all the time. And that really, in my mind, helps me ease any of those nervous feelings, or that I'm not enough, or that, you know, I'm not, you know, who I say I am, or I don't have the credibility. It's just like, look, we're all students. we're going to continue to trudge forward. We're going to continue to learn, and like treat it like it's fun, right? Like if you don't think data science is fun, if you don't think learning this stuff is fun, if you don't think solving these problems is fun, I mean, you probably shouldn't do it, right? I mean, there's plenty of other ways to make really good money, more money than a data scientist makes. I mean, software engineers have very comparable incomes. It's probably the barrier to entry into becoming a software engineer is a little bit lower because it's a lot easier to evaluate the performance of software engineers, right? I mean, I might be going down a little rabbit hole here, but
no,
like the idea is that, if you get away from what other people think and you're doing it for the enjoyment of it or because you're interested in it, when I'm coding, right, I don't think about what other people think of me. When I'm doing a project, I don't think like, oh, are other people going to think this is good? No, I'm thinking about the project. I'm thinking about, why I want to solve this problem or what the problem is going to result in. Once you're working in the process, once you're diving into the process, all these thoughts go away, or they should. So do more work, think less. That's moral of the story. Kind of went round and about there, but hopefully there was some
No,
value
no,
in
no,
that.
no, no, no. But and I think everything you're saying during the whole thing is so valuable. Yeah, because and then I thought about going into data science for a lot of time, and it is so cool to hear from somebody like you that you had the same thoughts that I had, and you overcame that, right? And so it is truly very cool. So thank you for all the value that you're bringing here. Another question I would ask, because we're talking for a lot, and I don't want to steal a lot of your time, but I do have a lot of questions. So can you walk me through a day-to-day routine? What is your day-to-day like? So for people that don't know, now it's 8:20, I believe, in your time, PST, and we started the call at 7:30. So you are early guy.
Yeah.
A very early guy.
Well,
So can you walk me through your routine as a data scientist, or what you do a day to day?
yeah, so all my clients I'm in the US and I'm on Hawaii time, which is 6 hours ahead of Eastern time where most of my clients are. So I'm waking up at most mornings at around like noon their time, or a little earlier than that, maybe like 11 a.m., 10 a.m. their time. So everyone
Wow.
else has had a little bit of a head start on the day compared to me. But in my mind, this means, this means that I have a lot more time at night, even though I'm a morning person, to be effective, and I can get ahead on work when they're done working or whatever that might be. But a normal day, I wake up at between 5 and 7 a.m. I don't set any alarms because, and unless I have any meetings, but I usually wake up pretty reliably around that time period. I read a book a while ago called Why We Sleep,
Yeah,
and it talks
great
about
book.
it talks about the importance of sleep, and I that's something I really wanted to put a priority on, and that's why I've just done away with the alarm clocks. I think that I feel more energetic, more rested. My body is, I have less aches and pains, whatever that might be. But so I wake up in that window. I usually get up. I have some coffee. The first thing I
With
do is
mint, right? You said
yeah,
that before.
exactly. I like it with mint. I don't do any true calories or like any sugar. So I've been fasting for a while, so I don't eat anything
Oh,
until noon or 1.
yeah. I don't think we
But
want to go into that because I've been fasting
that's
for
a
two
rabbit hole. Yeah,
years.
yeah, me too.
Yeah, yeah.
But a long rabbit hole. But I mean, it helps me stay more productive or more focused, whatever it might be.
100%. Just
But
quick follow up. What kind of fasting are you doing? I know it's intermittent, but what kind of fasting do you do?
so
What do you do? I do 8:16.
yeah, I same thing. It fluctuates. It'll be I'll fast between 16 and 20 hours every day, and sometimes more. And like some Mondays I just won't eat, and then at the beginning of the year I do a 3-day water fast. Um, just you start the year off right. My birthday's on the 4th, so I do
So
from
you destroy
January
yourself
1st
in
to
the
my
morning.
birthday, and then like my birthday dinner, I have to eat a little bit beforehand just so I don't like get sick. But the birthday dinner, that's when food never tastes as good as it does after you've not eaten for a couple days.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, you're
I know.
like, you eat like a nice steak, but but I digress. So you know, I'll try to wake up with the coffee. The first thing I usually do is I check all of my metrics. So I look at YouTube, I look at a bunch of the income sources that I have, and I track all the income that I make. I also look at all of
First
the
thing.
thing,
This is the first thing you do after the coffee.
yeah. And then I go through and I look at all of the like what I did yesterday, and I have a kind of checklist where I track my goals and those things. And there's another book called The Four Disciplines of Execution, and it talks about lead and lag metrics. So I really try and focus on lead metrics. Lead metrics are things that are highly
Can you tell it one
correlated.
more time?
Yeah,
The name
so
of the book?
The Four Disciplines of Execution.
By?
I have no clue.
Okay,
Um,
no worries, no worries. We'll find it.
but um, but so the idea is if you want to lose weight, right? You don't necessarily track your weight. That's not going to change. You're not going to have an impact on that on a day-to-day basis, right? Unless you don't eat for a couple of days. I mean, you might lose a pound or two. But um, on the other hand, if you track every day, if you went to the gym and how many calories that you consumed, or if you consumed the correct number of calories, if you do those things every day, you're going to lose weight in the longer term. And those are things you have control over, complete control over every day. You have control of how much you eat, and you have control over if you go exercise or not, right?
Yep.
So you want to track the things that you have control over, and they'll eventually predict the end goal. So, for example, I track obviously my success on YouTube, but I also track just how many YouTube videos I make, right? Or how much time I've spent making YouTube videos. Because if I know if I make YouTube videos and they're good, I'll grow on that platform. So you get the same feeling of success if you're checking the box for, hey, I just made a new video, as you do as, oh, hey, this video was super successful. And again, you want to track things that you have complete control over. So like you control your own destiny a lot more. You're less worried about the random noise that could affect performance on any of those other things. So I do that. I track my stats. I'm most productive in the morning. So from around 7:30 or 8 to about 11, I get most of my quantitative work done. So if I have some coding to do, I'll do that. I'll sometimes shoot video in the morning or edit video. It's not the most effective use of my time because I can edit video in the afternoon and not be tired. But I'll pretty much try and do all of my coding before lunch. Then I will take usually a 30 or 40-minute break. For the last 2 weeks or last 3 weeks, I've been doing yoga every day. I've been having like some back issues and neck issues, so that's been really helping. So I'll do about 30 to 45 minutes of yoga, and then I'll eat my first meal. And then I come back, I'll do some video editing, some YouTube stuff, and follow up with mostly emails or any interviews that I have. I've been trying to do interviews later, but since the time difference, most people prefer my time for interviews. So that sometimes creeps into my quantitative work. And then I've been trying to get back into playing a lot more golf. So I've been trying to go to the golf course in the afternoons and get around. And I've actually met some really cool people that have been very good potentially career-wise as well, interested a lot in the same type of investment stuff and doing some businesses together. And it's weird and serendipitous how those things work. So that's a part of my life I definitely want to keep going. It's been an awesome way to network and meet people, especially in Hawaii when all the beaches are shut down and you have to social distance a ton. And
A
the
golf
golf course is
course.
like the only thing that's open. So I might as well milk it, get outside. And you can, if you're watching the video, you can see my wicked golf tan. So
And this is a reason to watch the video, is to see the
yeah. See how red my face and neck are and how white the edge of
body.
my chest is. Yeah.
Yeah, but definitely like the sport, it is one of the best way to network effectively and to have fun at the same time. I find that all the time. I'm a college, I'm a student athlete as well. I play soccer, but I'm getting into the gym a lot, and I really love sport as a. I love doing them. I love the competition. I love to have fun with them. You know, sports are great, and
Yeah.
it is great that you do all your work in the morning, and then sport in the afternoon. Right? Is that the thing?
Yeah, for the most part. You know, touching on what you said with being a student athlete or you know, still playing a lot of golf like myself. I mean, that's always a talking point. If you know, it's it's a little bit. I don't know if it's disappointing, but it's. Um, I think it is a idiosyncrasy of business that it is so tied to conversation and interpersonal skills. And in most business circles, like sports are really closely tied to interpersonal skills. I mean, they have been forever. And being able to talk about you being a student athlete, that's an automatic talking point that's interesting to other people. For me, like if I tell them that I play golf or that, you know, I played professionally or I played in college, whatever that might be, people are always interested in hearing those stories. They're always interested in establishing a further connection on that, right? I
Yeah.
mean, everyone's like, oh, you know, I'm a terrible golfer, but I love it. And I'm like, oh, you know, like it always goes down some weird rabbit hole and you become friends or whatever that might be.
Yeah, you
But
can teach them. You can invite them to the golf if you are
exactly,
interested.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
so maybe
And
this,
can do that in soccer because in soccer, you know, it's difficult to get. You need to be a little bit more athletic. But I'm trying to go over some gym stuff to to work on that.
well, I think in a broader picture, the idea is not that you have to play a sport to be able to communicate, but you should think about what are common communication topics, what are things people are generally interested in, you know, and learn up on them or have some uniqueness about yourself. I mean, I get dinged all the time on like dates and stuff, for example, because I've never watched The Office. I don't enjoy shows. I really, I just don't get it. I feel like watching shows for me is a waste of time because of that
Yeah.
opportunity concept. What else could I be doing? But like those are some of the most normal ways people connect with each other when you're first meeting, right? It's like, oh, have you seen, uh, have you watched Game of Thrones? Like, or you know, I have watched Game of Thrones, um,
Me
but you know
too.
these,
I forced myself and watched it,
yeah.
but it was cool.
But
It was very cool.
but you know those are the things that you have to think about when you're communicating. Is like maybe you're not that good at networking, but like what are things people like? Learn how to talk about them. Um, there are, you know, we had a really good head start because sports are an interesting topic. We both played them, but you know, that's not something everyone else can't learn from. Is that hey, like, you know, learn about sports, learn about, you know, some fascinating concept of the economy that people are going to find interesting. Learn about, you know the most about agriculture. People are going to find it interesting. Feel like, oh, you know, actually, you're walking down the road and like, oh, these are 8 different types of fauna that I've seen. Um, but I digress. I just think that's something I always want to bring up because, you know, people don't think of data science, a very technical field, as being soft at all. But the interview process is all interpersonal, well, half interpersonal skills and then some technical skills.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, and so just finish the part of your day. You what about your evening? So in the
Oh,
afternoon you try to play some sports, and in the evening?
the evening, I'll usually, I'm boring. I'll just come home and eat dinner, and then I will read or I'll answer a lot of YouTube comments, LinkedIn comments, emails. Just probably not the best way to end my day. I put all of my technology outside of my room when I go to bed, though. So I feel like that's at least a good way to completely disconnect. Um,
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we don't want to go into that rabbit hole because this interview is already 1 hour long, and
yeah,
because I have so much to say about that. But that's cool.
yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of the productivity stuff that I'm fascinated with. I think that, you know, we're part of the excitement of life is understanding how to optimize or become the best self.
Yeah.
And maybe one day I'll make another YouTube channel that talks specifically about that stuff. But I
Well,
feel like maybe I have to be a bit more successful before people really tune in and listen to my life advice outside of data science advice. So
well, I don't think so. I think for like I was thinking about that too. Doing maybe we can do a
yeah,
collaboration on that. Yeah, I'd love that. I'd love that. So people people that who are listening to this, please let us know
yeah, let
if
us
you are
know.
if you're interested in those kind of things because yeah. Yep,
Yeah,
we
I
can do a
promise the
nice collab.
videos will be a little bit more concise.
Yeah, this is a long. I will put like notes, and so people can jump on where the point they like most. So but we don't want to keep them for hours,
Of
and I
course.
feel like we can do. But yeah, so another thing that I would ask for you is what kind of resources or what kind of skills would you go back and learn as a college student? What do you think in order to break into data science? We're always talking about data science. What would you say there are the biggest and the best resources to learn? The
So
hottest.
there are two things that will go the furthest in getting you a data science job, or probably any job in general. The first is having a track record, right? And so that is either through internships, jobs, projects, volunteer work, whatever that might be. And so for me, I would have spent more time pursuing those opportunities and building out a track record, right? The second thing is, well, actually, I want to continue on the track record path. What I've done, hopefully, with YouTube, or what I've really strived to do over the past year, is to create um, enough critical mass that things are attracted to me, right? If I have enough content out there, if I have enough of a brand, if I have enough of a presence, opportunities come to me rather than me having to go out and get them. And you think about
Yeah.
that like a planet, right? If a planet is large enough, it has a gravitational pull and it'll bring things towards it. If it's small enough, it'll get pulled towards, I mean, it'll still have gravitational pull, but it'll get pulled more towards other things, etc. So for
Great
me,
analogy.
yeah, so for me, I wish I had started creating that gravitational force earlier. I wish I had started producing content and sharing it. I wish I had started, connecting with people on LinkedIn. I wish I had started going out and building a network, building, again, this track record, this brand, whatever that might be. If I had that, it's not just, sponsorship opportunities or partnership opportunities or interview opportunities that I get now. If I'd done that earlier, job opportunities actually would come to me. Recruiters are reaching out to you because they're seeing what you post on LinkedIn, they're seeing your videos, they're seeing whatever that might be. So that is something which might not be super concrete, but that's something that I think pays incredible dividends going forward, is if you've built that. And I'm learning that now, and I'm really focusing this year on building that out. But, think about that, what that does if you're in college now, what that does for you in 5 years, right? I mean, you might have an audience or a website that you could even make money off of, right? Or you might have a ton of different job opportunities where you can actually take the job of your dreams because you have so many other options and you can really pursue different opportunities. So thinking in the long term with creating this critical mass is something that I know, at the time I didn't have the wherewithal to do, but it's crazy to think about where I could be if I had started building that out earlier, or my own brand or network, whatever that might be. I guess this now kind of goes in line with that. The second thing is to just work on interpersonal skills, work on connecting with people. Pretty much every data scientist I've ever talked to, I mean, we're talking 50 plus. I don't think more than one or two of them have gone through traditional means of getting a data science job. That means they
Hmm.
go on LinkedIn, they go on Glassdoor, they go through the interview process, and they get the job. Like 90%, 99% of the people that I've talked to, I guess 98, there's only been one that has gone through the traditional path of around 50 plus, um, have either been referred
Uh-huh.
by a friend into a company, or they've worked with a recruiter to go and get that job, right? So, you're talking about not necessarily a shortcut, but you're talking about maximizing your opportunities. It doesn't come from just sending out, a hundred different applications. It comes from maybe finding 10 friends and going through, 10 employee referrals. There's a positive incentive for them to do that. Most employee referrals get a little stimulus bonus as well. So the incentive system lines up a lot better, and it could potentially save you a lot of time and effort, right? I mean, rather than sending out 100 applications, you could probably send out 10 employee referrals, and have the same interview success. I mean,
Yeah.
probability of getting that first interview, and probably increase your chances of getting a job. So
Yeah, and you put
those
the
are
time wiser, and you build some relationship as well, not only just applying online and losing time on that thing. That is the most boring thing in the world, at least for me.
yeah.
Jeez.
Well, something that I recommend is really spending time in your applications, writing cover letters, making your resume
Exactly.
unique to each position. And it's hard to do that for 100 different things. But if you're thinking about it, every time you don't do that, you're decreasing your chances by a couple percent here and there, and you're actually hurting yourself. So it's if you're just trying to get
Opportunity
a job,
cost.
yeah, exactly. Opportunity cost. You want to work. Um, I think few really good, promising opportunities are always better than the shotgun approach,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
because just like data science, where you're honing in on individual projects and you're going to put your best foot forward, or you're going to learn the most when you're focusing on just one or two things that have concrete outcomes. Same thing with the job approach. If you're really focusing on getting one or two or three positions, like, I don't know, the world has a strange way of zoning in on that and really highlighting the value you can provide in those positions.
Hmm. And what about any technical skills you would suggest, like talking about real, because this is great, but you have
Yeah.
to have some skills as well. Obviously, especially in data science, that is a very difficult, very difficult field to break into. What would you say? Meaning languages to learn, libraries to get to know, those those
Yeah.
those,
So
those kind of things.
I think having an understanding of Python, the main data science packages are Pandas, NumPy,
Yeah.
Scikit-learn, Matplotlib. But even more valuable than that is there's two skills that I think are really important. The first is learning how to find and understand documentation. So all of these Python, all these packages are documented very well, by the people that create them. There's tons of examples there, and just going through that, understanding how it works, for any package that you try out is going to be more valuable than like memorizing the the different methods that are used, right? So I would highly recommend people focus on understanding how to pick up things quickly through documentation or through Googling or through Stack Overflow. Learning how to write a good Google search probably is worth more than, memorizing 20 of the methods that are most commonly used in pandas, because I can always just look them up, right?
Yeah.
So, I heard a while ago, which is an interesting concept to me, is that you should never organize your email inbox. My email inbox, I have like thousands of unreads, I have all these things, but at the same time, I know how to use the search in my inbox very effectively if I'm looking for something, right? And I
Hmm.
can also set up the filters very effectively for if something is going to be important or it's from a subscriber, it goes into a certain folder. But most of the stuff you get is just garbage, and you waste a lot of time just sifting through it, right? You can always hire an
Hmm.
assistant or something like that down the road, but if you get really good at the search, you don't have to worry about a lot of that other stuff, right? Same thing with data science. If you get really good at understanding where to look for content, or where to look for the answers, or how to properly ask the questions, you, you save most of your time, and you learn a lot faster because you're able to just like work on projects. You're able to do stuff at a lot higher clip. So people are so worried about, oh, I should learn this technical skill and this technical skill. If you look at the job descriptions, they'll have thousands, like the amount of technical skills that you should know is absurd. It's not something anyone can learn, right? But if you're
Hmm.
familiar with all those things and you know how to go about like, calling out the answers, or working with them, like you'll be fine. That's all that should be reasonably expected of anyone. So learn how to pick it up quick, learn how to forget it quick, and come back to it if you need it.
Great, great. I love those advices, and yeah. Okay, so this has been truly a wonderful conversation, and we want to keep it reasonable. It's already
Understandably,
now,
yeah.
yeah. And so, if you want to, I have so many questions more, like a
Yeah.
lot of them to ask. So, if people are interested in that, please let me know and let us know, and we will do a round two if you're okay with that,
Yeah,
and go
perfect.
maybe
Thumbs up.
in more questions. And but do you have any parting thoughts for the audience, for for people, for students and recent grads? Anything you would say at least that people should remember? And uh, the perfect way to close the interview, what is it for Ken?
um, so I think one thing that isn't talked about
Yeah.
enough in any type of career path and any type of success path, the number one determining factor for most people is the mindset that you have. And so if you're familiar with any, I guess, the kind of self-help methodology, the number one thing that you want to develop is a growth mindset over a fixed mindset. Limiting beliefs, or what characterizes a fixed mindset, are the things that hold you back from any true success in the data science field or in the field of your choosing. Developing a growth mindset where you're like, okay, maybe I can't do this right now, but it's completely within my capability to, for example, learn data science, or to pick up this package down the road, or to start a YouTube channel, or whatever that might be. That is something that is so powerful, because you're leaving the door open for success down the road. If you're saying to yourself, I can't learn this, I can't become a data scientist because of XYZ, you're never going to become a data scientist because you don't think you can. And so, I mean, completely realistic. I'm never going to jump to the moon, but, I think you'll really surprise yourself if you believe you can do things and you leave the door open to success and realize that you're not the same person tomorrow that you were today. You can grow, you can expand, and that takes time. But one of the reasons I track my performance every day is I can look back a month ago, or, I look back 3 months ago, or 5 months ago, and I say, oh, I had 3,000 subscribers on YouTube at the beginning of the year. 6 months later, I'm at 80,000. And each day it felt really slow, right? Each day it's like, well, I got a couple here, a couple there, and then I was starting to get more. In the moment, it feels incredibly slow.
Nothing.
Even days when I had 1,000 subscribers, it's like, that's not moving as fast as I would like it to be. But now I look back and it's like, oh my goodness, I've come so far. So don't sell yourself short. Develop a growth mindset. If you're interested in learning data science, if you're interested in more streamlined videos about how that works, and what a life in the field is like, definitely check out my YouTube channel. I'm active on Twitter as well, and I accept most connection requests on LinkedIn. So love to connect, help you build that critical mass, help you build your network, and hopefully help you land a data science job, or whatever you're trying to do within this domain.
Well, this is the perfect closure, I think. And this is a skill that has no time, and truly wonderful. And if you believe you can do it, you can do it. And just, you truly have to believe that and do everything that takes. So thank you very much, Ken. This was great. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Great. I'll see you soon.